So we're going to talk a little bit about beauty in video games, and I've been discussing with my students and asking whether this is a relevant category to apply, given that it's really important in the history of philosophical aesthetics, the way that philosophers have talked about questions of aesthetics. Beauty is one of the key things. So does that mean we should be able to apply it to games, or do we need different kind of categories? Do you think there are experiences of beauty that you have when you're playing games?
It's difficult to look at a game as a fixed thing, whereas you can appreciate beauty when it's stationary in an easier way. So with games, you're moving through it all the time, and things change possibly if the action's fast, too quickly for you to appreciate the environment or the actual aesthetics of the game.
But there are moments when the game pauses and displays a vista for you to admire.
Yeah, I think in that case you can appreciate at least the scene. It's almost filmic then, I think. Well, especially with the new games that are more realistic.
This is one of the things, though, that games are competing on, isn't it, in terms of their marketability, their up-to-dateness, their distinctiveness, is the wow graphic factor.
Yeah. I noticed in a game I'm playing at the moment, the environment is, I would say, very beautiful. It's very detailed.
Which is this?
Uncharted 2. Drake something or other.
Right.
And you can only appreciate the beauty of the environment at certain points in the game, and actually the pace is so fast that most of the time it just passes you by, which seems quite a pity that so much effort has been put into it, and it's very difficult to see. Whereas I think individual scenes, as you turn a corner, say, and you look at the new vista, you could appreciate in terms of beauty, the colours, the position of different things in relation to each other. I think you could.
So that's the moment where you are most like someone, a traditional person appreciating beauty. They walk up to a picture in a gallery, they walk into a new room in a gallery, and they see a picture on the far wall and think, oh yes, I'm going to go and admire that. And they do that in contemplation, and it's still. That's where the traditional concept of beauty has come from, looking at still objects. And we have problems adapting that to moving objects. But what about a dancer or other forms of movement, someone that's is very elegant? You're still. Why is that different from playing games? If it's something that's moving.
I think it depends on the game. For example, if you're playing from a first-person perspective, you're only looking at the environment, really. If you're playing from a third person and in fighting games, often you can appreciate, in the same way as a dance, the balletic qualities of the gameplay.
Yeah, and one of the things I particularly like are characters that do have that acrobatic, balletic quality, the way they move, the way they flow around the game space. And that's something that designers are obviously thinking about with motion capture. They're trying to increase that quality so that with relatively few keystrokes or presses of the button, you appear to be very balletic in response. Your avatar is very elegant the way they move around. You were saying something about performance, that it's what you do as a player that we need to think about, or that's what you really enjoy in terms of the aesthetics of a game, rather than necessarily what something looks like. Is that right?
I think it's a combination of the two. It depends on how much opportunity you have to actually appreciate still images, I think. Because when an environment is rushing past, you can't really appreciate it in the same way. So it depends on the gameplay, and then some combine the two. For example, the cutscenes, for example, you can appreciate in the same way as you would film.
So is it always the results of your actions? It's what you're seeing on screen, what your character is doing, or the space the character is moving through. They're what's beautiful, rather than the controller itself and the actual movements you're performing with your hands?
I think when you're playing and you've been playing the same game for a while, you don't notice what you're doing with your hands, so I don't think you can consider that in the same way. You're looking at the consequences of your movement.
Right. I came across a phrase, I think it was Graham Kirkpatrick who mentioned this idea of the dance with the hands, which implies that it is actually the movement of your hands which is pleasurable and shows mastery and skill. So the more skills you get with the game, the more fluid the movements are with the hands.
I can't agree with that at all. I don't think you notice it. So maybe to an observer, that movement might be beautiful, but certainly not to the person who's actually playing the game.
And
I don't think. Maybe with an arcade game where you have few buttons to press, then your skill comes into it and you can feel the flow of the game in a way. But I think with the numerous buttons you have to play with a console game, and the fact that they have to keep changing, you're not repeating the same action actually over and over again, you have to keep switching to different menus and so on. I don't think it's quite the same thing.
And also, the better you get, we've observed this with students or when we've seen kind of champion players, they're very still.
Yeah.
There's not room for them to move with flourish. They don't kind of do an extra gesture
what would be interesting
while they're moving.
to relate that to using the Wii, the Wiimote, and see what that looks like.
Do they move
how that feels.
with more expressiveness, or actually do they move with sort of great economy and minimal expressiveness?
I think it's the same. I think the more experience they get, the less they move.
Yes, so in Wii Tennis, and I'm doing beautiful, having a backhand, and I get beaten by someone that just does that. So maybe the dance with hands thing is still to do with what the player feels like they're doing.
From somebody who... Is this person talking about what players feel or how he interprets it? Because I think from the observer it may be completely different.
Yes. I wonder whether it's also to do with young people, maybe young men in particular, for whom dance with their whole bodies might be problematic, whereas they can move using a game controller.
Well, I think that's just the same with some poor old person like myself who can't dance physically but can dance on the screen, not necessarily with the hands. I totally disagree with the hands.
Well, maybe it's not the idea of a dance is you're thinking of it as performance, but maybe it's just doing a series of pleasurable movements that are graceful and feel nice to do.
Okay, I think there's a difference.
Is that yoga with hands?
Yeah, I don't believe it. I actually think there's aesthetic pleasure from holding the controller.
Yeah.
To feel it in the palm of your hand. However, I don't think the same can be said from button pressing. I think what you're then seeing is the consequence of that, which you might find pleasurable.
There's actually no pleasure in actually pressing the buttons.
Well, apart from getting RSI, no, not really.
Yeah, yes. So because it does vary from controllers. So some, which is at the N64, where the movement of the joystick is this done, isn't that right?
It's a similar layout almost to the, well, not entirely, but to the 360, where you've got asymmetric analog sticks.
Right. Yes, I mean, so I think that maybe that there's a bit more pleasure with that, but they're not doing very much.
But the thing is, it relates to the gameplay.
Yes,
that's not pleasurable unless what's happening on the screen is working for you.
Yes. So if it's translated into fluid movements, then the two
if you
join
do that
together.
over and over again and you keep dying, I don't think you can gain any pleasure from the movement of the stick.
Right. Okay. How do we get onto that?
I don't know. I think we should stop there.
Okay.